The 2,000-year peace is over. Aliens declare war, but humans only laugh. Reaches its pivotal moment when humanity's smaller fleet confronts 300 Zephyrian warships at Proxima Nebula. As the aliens unleash fear-inducing darkness, humans respond with laughter and light, shattering the psychological weapon. Their coordinated wolfpack tactics devastate the enemy flagship, forcing the once invincible Admiral Corps to surrender, forever changing galactic power dynamics. The year was 2325, 3 centuries after humanity had officially joined the Galactic Confederation, and 2,300 years since the establishment of intergalactic peace. From the observation deck of the battlecruiser Aurora, Admiral Jake Morrison gazed out at Nexus Prime, the sprawling diplomatic and trade center of the Confederation. The station was larger than most Earth cities, with thousands of lights twinkling like stars against the backdrop of space. "Admiral, the council meeting will commence in 20 minutes, said Lieutenant Amy Brooks, his young and trusted assistant, as she approached him with a datapad. Jake nodded without turning, his eyes still fixed on the distant lights of Nexus Prime. Could all those lights be hiding some kind of darkness? He wondered aloud. What if these 2,000 years of peace aren't our foundation, but merely a delay of the inevitable return to survival of the fittest? Amy stood beside him, following his gaze. Your grandfather's stories again? About Earth's turbulent days? We cannot forget how to fight, Jake said, his voice low and contemplative. I sometimes worry this prolonged peace might eventually erode our will to resist. Reports had been trickling in about shadow ships appearing at the edge of the system, though nothing had been confirmed. Radio operators had been detecting strange frequencies from somewhere far, very far away. But no one dared suggest these signals had any meaningful connection to anything concerning. Meanwhile, on New Boston, a settlement in the Sol system with just enough population to maintain mining infrastructure and spacecraft construction, children no longer studied war tactics. Instead, they learned about the grim history of those unfortunate enough to wage war. The populace was enthusiastic, preoccupied with intergalactic entertainment, VR experiences, cultural exchanges beyond Jupiter, luxury cruises to Nexus Prime. Humanity had been thriving, science and technology advancing rapidly in this era of unprecedented galactic cooperation. They were considered young members of the Confederation, having joined only 300 years ago, still building their defensive capabilities alongside much older races like the Centauri, Valoran, Rielian, Alteran, and Vegan, all directly under the Council of Elders, which had maintained peace for 2 millennia through diplomacy, trade, and a total commitment to abandoning comprehensive warfare. The very concept of a traditional military had been replaced by what was essentially a glorified space station security force. There were no war fleets, only patrol vessels. Peace was viewed as evidence of superior civilization, with all planets accepting resource exploitation, technological exchange, and cultural sharing instead of force. Jake sighed, checking his watch. It was time to head to the council chambers. Little did he know that the peace he had questioned was about to be shattered forever. The massive council hall at Nexus Prime was in an unprecedented state of panic. Jake had been summoned urgently, only to find the dignified elders, who typically conducted proceedings with ceremonial precision, now in disarray, clutching at each other, faces drawn with terror. What's happening? Jake demanded, finding Elder Zoroth, the oldest member of the council, trembling in his ceremonial robes. A message, the ancient being stammered. From the Zephyrian Empire. Before Jake could ask further questions, the main display activated, showing the vastness of space filled with 300 dark warships, their hull structures seemingly absorbing light from their surroundings. A booming voice echoed through the chamber. To all planetary systems in the Confederation, we are the Zephyrian Empire. After 2,000 years of exile, we have returned. The age of weakness ends now. All worlds must surrender. All species must submit. You have one solar cycle to yield. Surrender, and you may continue to exist. Refuse, and you will be reduced to ashes. The message ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence until Elder Zoroth found his voice again. "We must negotiate," he wheezed. "We have no real war fleet." Ambassador Kellen of the Rielian race wailed. "Where is the Circurius escort? The Zephyrians have likely destroyed it already." Within 6 hours, the Centauri Republic had surrendered, readily offering to hand over their fleets and weapons. The Vegan Confederacy followed shortly after, declaring, "We must protect our people." The Riel Union and Alter Defense Force surrendered in quick succession, believing capitulation would preserve peace. Elder Zoroth turned to Jake, his eyes pleading. "Admiral Morrison, humanity should surrender too. We are afraid. We are powerless. Every species has accepted submission. You cannot stand alone." The council hall was emptying as delegates hurried back to their planets to prepare for surrender. Jake watched them leave, feeling strangely detached from their panic. He lit an electronic cigarette, took a moment to contemplate, then straightened his back. "Elder Zoroth, humanity appreciates the Council's concern, but we will not surrender. We will not bow our heads. If the Zephyrians want our world, let them come, and take it by force." The hall fell silent. Amy Brooks, standing behind Jake, nodded with a small smile. Elder Zoroth cried out, "You will doom your entire species out of pride." Jake replied evenly, "We're not doing this out of pride. We're doing this because it's right, because it's the nature of humanity." Within hours, humans were officially exiled from the Confederation with a brief declaration. "We proclaim humanity as enemies of galactic peace. They will be destroyed if they do not surrender." When this news spread throughout the Sol system, humans didn't panic. They laughed. Social media entertainment channels were flooded with sarcastic comments. "Exiled for having a backbone, prophesied since time immemorial." Earth President Helen Ross made a televised announcement. "We've been labeled enemies of peace because we dare to stand against bullies. I don't care. If standing up to oppressors is a crime, then we're ready to be criminals." But the situation grew more serious when Deposton News broadcast images of Zephyrian ships moving toward the Sol system. The threat had arrived at humanity's doorstep. An emergency meeting of Earth Defense Command brought together all military leaders at Luna Base on Earth's moon. Admiral Jake Morrison, commanding the Titan fleet, outlined the overall strategy. "We must transition from peacetime to wartime emergency status. We don't have a large fleet, but we have intelligence and will." General Patricia Hayes, infantry commander, presented a coordination strategy. Team leaders on New Boston and colony planets must prepare soldiers and civilians alike. Weapons production, militia training. Colonel Matt Johnson, intelligence specialist, reported leaked information from remnants of occupied species. The Zephyrians are facing scattered resistance and must deploy many troops to suppress it. They're unprepared for a coordinated resistance movement. Meanwhile, Dr. Kevin Wright, an expert in alien technology research, discovered a weakness in the Zephyrian fear projector. The device creating their light-absorbing darkness effect was primarily a psychological weapon. Kevin proposed creating PUK-01, a super-short energy bomb that could disable cloaking devices and unmask enemy ships. Colonel Jack Turner collaborated with Dr. Wright to develop weapons prototypes, including Stinger missile ships equipped with PUK-01 modules and pulse cannons, capable of penetrating Zephyrian armor by targeting their main energy circuits. Captain Ryan Davis, commander of the ship Defiant, trained his squadron to forget the space fencing tactics taught by the Confederation. "They use single ships to impress. We'll use tactical group formations with wide coverage," he instructed. Officers practiced team coordination to keep ships at optimal distances for mutual support. Commander Nick Foster, responsible for overall fleet tactics, implemented combat exercises forcing smaller Hornet ships to follow larger vessels to drill through protective surfaces. They simulated confrontations where Zephyrians used fear bombs, teaching humans to hold their position, coordinate to shut down sound vibration devices, and counterattack immediately. The civilian response was equally impressive. Millions on New Boston volunteered for the Civil Guard. The Skyline Dome was established to protect civilians while serving as a gallery displaying images of Zephyrians surrendering light years away to boost morale. The Luna Naval Shipyard accelerated production, completing 10 Mark III bomb ships daily and upgrading propulsion systems with high-speed Falcon Eye reconnaissance radar. President Helen Ross addressed the public. "We didn't dream of war, but if others force us to fight, we will fight until they submit." Throughout the Confederation, civilians listened in on communications, hearing that humanity was ready to go all in, while fumbling to erect defensive models on planets that had already surrendered. Captain Sandra Lewis, commanding the stealth reconnaissance vessel Ghost, infiltrated Zephyrian space and discovered serious internal disagreements among Zephyrian fleet generals over failed uprisings on conquered planets. Sandra collected an audio recording of a tense voice. "We destroyed the last world in just 3 hours, yet it's taking a week to deal with poorly organized rebels." This confirmed that the Zephyrians greatly feared actual warfare, not just angry, because they had to use military force. Sandra secretly transmitted this information to the Interlink intelligence network, helping humans prepare sophisticated guerrilla campaign tactics. Meanwhile, many conquered species began violent resistance. The Centauri Underground released provocative spirit-raising clips. "We were once a free people. Now, we live in forced labor." The Rielian Cipher Guild used encryption to attack Zephyrian control systems on planet Kentora, causing the command center to lose power for 30 minutes. The Zephyrians responded brutally. The Upsilon Brigade used mini-nuclear force to punish resistant station cities, destroying 80% of infrastructure. Images of burning civilians flooded human networks, igniting fury. "Look at these beings who spoke so politely in the council, now using centrifugal bombs." The Council of Elders was deeply divided. Ambassador Farian of Valoran argued, "We've lived in peace for 2,000 years. We don't need heroic dreams." Meanwhile, Militia Riel leader Garrison. "Thou sought Jake's opinion. If humans still dare to stand tall, perhaps we should rise too." Elder Zoroth lost credibility as many council members cursed him as the one who led the entire Confederation to its doom. The human fleet officially established the Human Liberation Fleet, setting up an advanced station in the Proxima constellation. They assembled 150 Mark X Sentinel ships loaded with cores to pierce Zephyrian armor, and 200 Predator submarine hunters equipped with PUK-01 modules. In comprehensive exercises, the ships Aurora, Titan, and Defiant coordinated fleet maneuvers, implementing wolf pack tactics, where small ships surrounded targets to destroy main electrical circuits, and crystal assassination tactics, using nanobots to penetrate Zephyrian X-ray armor. During these drills, crew members were observed smiling casually, no longer fearful as in the beginning. Sometimes they even clamored to fight sooner than ordered. When a second message from the Zephyrians boomed, "Are you eager to see us destroy your former allies? Surrender within the next 6 hours. If not, you will only laugh in despair." The human response across all planets was defiant. New Boston residents organized anti-Zephyrian campfires, performing satirical skits. "We laugh because those cloaked giants look like weather-worn toys." President Ross declared, "If others think we'll tremble in fear, look at this picture." She displayed an image of a 12-year-old militia child, aiming a sniper rifle at the sky, grinning broadly. Admiral Core of the Zephyrian fleet issued an order. "Make an example of New Boston. Show those foolish humans on Earth what power truly means." 150 Zephyrian ships surrounded New Boston, activating their fear cannon systems. All who resist shall die. The Human Liberation Fleet, under Jake's command aboard the Titan, dispatched 20 Sentinel ships into New Boston's atmosphere, destroying the fear projector devices within 10 seconds. The battle scene was chaotic. Ryan's small, defiant ship charged into the Zephyrian fleet like a meteor, plunging into the side of a dark pool to fire directly at the main engine. The coordinated attack between Hornet escort and nanobot bomb exploded the main control room of a Zephyrian vessel, temporarily disabling their command capabilities. The Zephyrian flagship, Destroyer of Worlds, angrily issued a firing order. "Now we'll show you true destruction." However, humans had set a trap. Mark X ships fired pulse weapons at the control codes of Zephyrian destruction cannons, causing them to reverse and target their mothership. As a result, the Destroyer of Worlds was damaged by its own weapons. The Zephyrians were stunned, unable to comprehend how a species that joined only 300 years ago dared to teach them such a lesson. They issued a temporary retreat order, but their formation dissolved in chaos. The strangest thing, they didn't roar or scream. They just stood still, looking at each other, laughing. Elder Zoroth secretly contacted Jake, pleading, "Jake, if you don't stop this, the entire galactic community will collapse. End this now." Jake replied, "That community collapsed when it chose cowardice. No one will mourn if it falls into a black hole. Only humans and those who know how to fight deserve to survive." Former allied species began covert communications with humanity. The Valorans expressed interest in joint military training. The Rielians discussed cooperative development of a new radar system. A reformed confederation emerged. Temporarily liberated planets formed a military alliance with humanity. Valoran, Rielian. Centauri forces established joint training camps for interplanetary tactical coordination. A tense dialogue occurred between Jake and General Vex of the Zephyrians. "Human, you will die in agony if you do not yield," Vex declared. Jake responded, "We only feel pain when we stand alone. Now you face us together." The Zephyrian fleet concentrated 300 ships, deploying the Brutality Array at Proxima. The human fleet brought 250 ships, making the Zephyrians think this species has committed suicide due to numerical disadvantage. Primarily comprised of small, maneuverable combat ships, strategically positioned around power nodes to lock down the surrounding energy field. The decisive battle took place around the Proxima Nebula, a region of electromagnetic interference and gravitational disturbances that made navigation unpredictable. The opposing forces faced off. 300 large Zephyrian ships arranged in Black Tempest formation against 250 human and allied vessels, 50 heavy Titan-class ships, 100 Sentinel Mark X vessels, and 100 smaller Hornet Predator craft. Admiral Kor commanded the Zephyrians, "Strike them first. Make those fools fear death itself." They fired fear beams across the human formation, creating an enveloping darkness. The Zephyrians were confident this would cause panic. Instead, human ships activated starflare pulse lights that penetrated the darkness, eliminating the fear effect entirely. Captain Ryan Davis ordered, "Focus on destroying fear projectors. Fire directly at control circuits." A dramatic three-step sequence unfolded. First, light shattered the night. Starflare beams shone directly onto Zephyrian armor, revealing their dark ships were merely covered in black paint. Second, tearing apart the enemy's spirit. Numerous Predator ships used PUK-01 modules to sabotage Zephyrian cloaking systems, forcing them to expose main electrical circuits and downgrade their defenses. Third, laughing amid fire and smoke. Human pilots fired, while laughing loudly. "Let's tease those black faces and see what happens." This recalled the image of Jake and Amy on the command bridge, bursting into laughter. They still don't realize. We aren't afraid. The coordinated wolf pack attack commenced. Small ships daringly weaved through enemy formations, luring Zephyrians to fire at decoys, while large, Titan-class ships concentrated extreme firepower on the energy circuits of the Destroyer of Worlds. When the flagship lost its engines, it became the victor isolated amid a storm of projectiles. Admiral Kor panicked, transmitting, "Turn back, we must retreat immediately." But the human allied forces had anticipated this. The stormy space within the nebula prevented hasty movements, allowing the Zephyrians to be easily surrounded. Colonel Matt Johnson, stationed at Luna Control Center, coordinated Phase 2. A group of Hornet infiltrators attacked from behind the Zephyrian rear guard, preventing reorganization. Captain Sandra Lewis commanded the Ghost Recon Squadron, stealthily approaching to directly observe and discover a critical vulnerability. Those two large machines with core radar antennas, destroy them, and immediately bring down the whole system. The Destroyer of Worlds flagship was disabled. Admiral Kor was forced to open a communication channel. "Admiral Morrison, we surrender. We ask only for an opportunity to negotiate." Jake Morrison looked up at the screen with calm dignity. "I accept. But first, let the entire galaxy see that you can never again sow fear among us." The galactic-wide announcement system proclaimed, "The Zephyrian Empire has officially surrendered. All Zephyrian forces must immediately hand over weapons and supplies. From today, we rebuild peace." Jake paused, containing his pride mixed with emotion. 2,000 years of peace aren't worth 5 minutes of perseverance. They told us we were useless. But they were wrong. Amy Brooks shed tears upon hearing the surrender order. Admiral Kor wore a sorrowful expression. The old man, who once conquered galaxies, now bowing his head to taste defeat through wisdom. The reformed Confederation Tribunal convened at Nexus Prime, with Jake Morrison joining representatives from Valoran, Centauri, and Rielian races. Many chairs remained empty. Elder Thene of Valoran spoke. "We thank humanity for saving our existence." Jake Morrison replied, "Peace isn't merely silence before enemies. Peace is when you're strong enough that no one dares sow fear." The Reconstruction Resolution included dissolving the old Council of Elders, establishing the Council of Harmonious Peace and Defense, with representatives from all species, each maintaining actual defense forces. The liberated planets faced significant challenges. Many worlds rebuilt after losing 30% of their population, focusing on establishing nursing homes and psychological treatment centers for survivors. Dr. Julie Adams, an interplanetary psychologist, reported that occupied communities were panicked by the theory of the enemy's invincibility. The notion that peace equals surrender was abandoned. The Zephyrians were placed under a civilian reconstruction regime with Confederation protection, prohibited from manufacturing heavy weapons, and subjected to strict population control in reintegration worlds. Admiral Kor was brought before the Nexus Prime Planetary Court, where Justice Mustard of the Rielian Judiciary proclaimed, "The Zephyrian fleet has sown terror, but we grant the opportunity to learn. We lost because of indifference, because we forgot our duty to protect the weak." General Patricia Hayes led the Peace Through Strength program. Each planet was required to build centers for combat skills and crisis management. Humans were encouraged to provide training to formerly surrendered species. Centauri learned guerrilla organization. Valorans studied carrier coordination techniques. Rielians shared cyber offense encryption technology. In his final appearance at Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the Reformed Confederation and declared, "As long as anyone wishes to bully others, we must be ready to defend what's right. Peace isn't the end of war, but preserving it through resilience. Humanity will not retreat. We invite all species to stand with us, so that when the next enemy comes, we will be a pack of wolves, no longer afraid." Elder Thene nodded, his eyes full of hope. "We will always remember, 2,000 years of peace was beautiful, but indeed a hollow dream. Awakening through victory is reality." Images showed new Alliance warships, human, Valoran, Raelian Centauri, patrolling the Alpha 1 trade route. Peace isn't just 1,000 smiles, but 1,000 vigilant eyes, ready to fight. The memorial wall on Luna expanded to include names of human, Centauri, Valoran, and Raelian soldiers who had sacrificed their lives, inscribed with the words, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." President Helen Ross's final broadcast stated, "We've learned an unforgettable lesson. The strongest aren't those with the most weapons, but those who never let fear destroy their faith." In the final scene, Captain Sandra Lewis walked along the Luna base launchpad, gazing into the empty space beyond, and whispered, "Look carefully at those stars. There are countless hidden weapons and invaders out there. But next time, they'll know we aren't easily subdued." The exploration ship Pioneer X departed orbit, heading toward the Orion Belt, a message that the new alliance would explore, not merely defend. Admiral Jake Morrison, 48, was a veteran captain admiral of the battleship Aurora in the Human Space Navy. Descended from early settlers on Mars and colonies, he was the grandson of a former Earth officer who had fought in the conflicts during the final era of the interplanetary warring states. His initial personality was cool and observant, with a tendency toward contemplation. He used his grandfather's stories, tales of Earth's chaotic days, to remind himself, "We cannot forget how to fight." He had assumed the 2,000-year peace was inevitable, but always harbored some unease. Could this tranquility one day destroy our will to fight? Throughout the crisis, Jake transformed from questioning, "Could we be too complacent?" to affirming combat values, "No fear," and finally becoming a symbol of interplanetary courage. The antagonist, Admiral Kor, began with feigned confidence but gradually unraveled as his fleet suffered consecutive defeats. By the end, he was forced to face the truth that no one is invincible, and learn the value of respecting one's enemy. Supporting characters all underwent transformations from theoretical experts, scientists, or training officers into true combat leaders, learning to make decisions under pressure, coordinate with multiple species, and strengthen their belief that only unity brings victory. The conflicts in the story operated on multiple levels. Jake Morrison struggled internally with whether to believe in perpetual peace. When the Zephyrians threatened, he faced the burning fear. What if I decide to fight and fail? What will the consequences be? He overcame this fear to choose fighting for the future of our descendants. Jake Morrison clashed with Elder Zoroth and the Council of Elders over their differing perspectives, surrender versus fight. Jake had to convince Elder Zoroth that peace is not slavery. Humanity confronted the Confederation's concept of peace. The majority of the Alliance had believed that 2,000 years of peace meant never having to fight. Jake and his group had to struggle to convince other communities that you must rise up to preserve peace. During the Battle of Proxima, ships faced electromagnetic interference and chaotic magnetic fields. The Predator ship experienced sensor disruption, nearly falling into a micro-black hole. A sudden meteor shower forced the human fleet to make emergency responses, maneuvering ships to avoid collisions. Humans also had to overcome the Zephyrian fear projector technology, turning this psychological weapon against its creators. The story explored several key themes. The contrast between species accepting submission and humans refusing to surrender illustrated courage versus cowardice. Jake's statement, "We're not doing this out of pride. We're doing this because it's right," highlighted the theme that courage has a moral foundation, not recklessness. The Zephyrians believed peace was achieved by sowing fear. Humans proved that true peace needs to be protected by the determination and strength to deter invaders. After witnessing the results, species like Centauri, Valoran, and Raelian abandoned their illusions about tranquil peace. They realized, only through cooperation can we protect the galaxy. The theme of strength and diversity was embodied in the reformed alliance. Many supporting characters, human soldiers, and allies sacrificed themselves, including Centauri and Valoran veterans, showing that each drop of blood is evidence of freedom. The Zephyrians, an invasive civilization, experienced failure for the first time and were forced to relearn mastery of warfare, abandoning the idea of invincibility. Humans had gone through a phase of dependent peace, 300 years of listening to others, before returning to learning to fight, to protect themselves. Throughout the narrative, the message remained clear. Freedom cannot be exchanged for temporary comfort. The wolf-pack formation imagery symbolized collective strength, contrasting with Zephyrian single-line command, focused on individual destroyers of worlds. The scene of humans laughing at Zephyrian threats became a recurring motif. Only laughter can truly terrify the enemy. The memorial wall on Luna transformed from a list of innocent casualties to the names of martyrs who sacrificed themselves to protect freedom, symbolizing the transformation from silent victims to heroes willing to fight. Jake's final speech captured the moral of the story. As long as anyone wishes to bully others, we must be ready to defend what's right. Peace isn't the end of war, but preserving it through resilience. The final image of Captain Sandra Lewis, gazing at distant stars and whispering about hidden weapons and invaders, suggested that while one battle was won, eternal vigilance would be required to maintain their hard-won freedom. As President Helen Ross concluded, "The strongest aren't those with the most weapons, but those who never let fear destroy their faith."